Two people took out the same loan in the same year from the same bank with the exact same interest rate down to the decimal. One of them is checking their balance at 2 a.m., stomach in their throat. The other used that exact same loan to buy a house with money that wasn't even fully theirs and walked away having gotten every dollar of their own cash back while still owning the house. Same paperwork, opposite life. There's one number sitting underneath every loan ever written: your credit card, your mortgage, even the kind of credit line billionaires use that you've heard mentioned but never seen explained. Almost nobody is taught what it actually is. It's not the interest rate, it's not your credit score, it's something hiding behind both of those. And once you can see it, you will never look at a piece of debt the same way again. Stay through this, because by the end, you'll know exactly which side of that number your own money is sitting on right now. Here's the part that gets skipped in every personal finance class. A loan isn't a debt. A loan is rented money. You pay a price to hold someone else's cash for a while. That price is interest. So the only question that has ever mattered is, what did you do with the money while you had it? Wow moment number one. Right now, the average American carrying a credit card balance is paying just over 24% to hold that money. At the same time, banks are renting that exact same kind of money to each other overnight for under 5%. That gap between what money costs and what it can earn is called the spread. The spread is the entire game. But the spread by itself doesn't build anything. There's a second piece riding right next to it: how many dollars you control for every $1 that's actually yours. That's leverage. Multiply the spread by leverage, and you get the only number that decides everything: the real return on your own cash. The person at 2 a.m. and the person who bought the house weren't separated by luck. They were separated by which side of this multiplication they landed on. A negative spread multiplied by leverage is how a normal credit card balance turns into a 5-year hole. A positive spread multiplied by leverage is how a single loan turns into a house. This is the formula. Everything from here is just this same equation scaled up level by level, and at every level, there's a catch nobody puts on the thumbnail. Start at the smallest, most accessible level there is. Most failed businesses weren't unprofitable. They were profitable on paper and dead in the bank account because they paid for their inventory before a single customer paid them. There's an older, quieter way to run the same business: trade credit. A supplier hands over the product first and gives 30, 60, even 90 days to pay, interest-free. You sell it, collect the cash from your customer, and only then pay the supplier back. Run that through the formula. How much of your own money was in that deal? 0, which means the leverage isn't 5 to 1 or 50 to 1. It's infinite because you can't divide by 0. This is why the best salespeople on earth are rarely the ones with the most capital. They were never short on money. They were short on terms. The catch? Infinite leverage only works if the product actually sells before the bill is due. Miss that window and the free money becomes a bill with no revenue behind it. The same trap that kills the businesses mentioned 30 seconds ago. The trick isn't avoiding risk. It's timing it. That's level 1, accessible to almost anyone with something to sell. Level 2 needs more capital, but the multiplier gets dramatically bigger. Here's a number a lot of finance content gets wrong on purpose because the wrong version sounds more exciting. Someone buys a distressed property for $500,000. They put $100,000 down, finance the rest, and spend $50,000 fixing it up. Total personal cash in, $150,000. The renovated property appraises at $700,000. They refinance at 80% of that new value, pulling out $560,000, paying off the old $400,000 loan, and walking away with $160,000 in cash. Most channels will call that $110,000 in profit. That's the wrong number, and the real one is better. $160,000 came out, $150,000 went in. Every dollar of personal cash was returned, plus a little extra, and the property, still appreciating, is still owned outright in equity. Run it through the formula. Personal money left in the deal? 0. Return on an investment of zero isn't a percentage, it's infinite. That same $150,000 can walk straight into the next property and the next and the next. The catch, and it's the one that actually matters here, the new loan is bigger. It went from $400,000 to $560,000, and so did the monthly payment. If the rent doesn't comfortably cover that larger payment, the strategy collapses the moment a single tenant moves out. The refinance isn't the hard part. Finding a property that still cash flows under the bigger loan is the part nobody sells a course on. Level 1 needed a product. Level 2 needed a down payment. Level 3 doesn't run on either. It runs on something most people will never personally hold, but every billionaire headline you've ever read is built on it. It runs in 3 moves: buy, borrow, die. Buy assets that go up in value: stock, a business, real estate. On paper, the net worth is real, but gains on paper are never taxed. Tax only triggers the moment something is sold. So the first rule is simple: don't sell. Instead, borrow. A bank or brokerage will lend cash against that portfolio through something real, called the securities-backed line of credit, currently priced around 5 to 6.5%. If the assets underneath are compounding near 7% a year, the spread stays positive, and that loan funds an entire lifestyle without ever triggering a tax bill. If those same assets had been sold instead of borrowed against, the long-term capital gains tax owed could run as high as 23.8% once the income investment surtax is included. Borrowing at 6% to avoid handing over almost 24% isn't a side benefit, it's the entire point. Then comes the step almost nobody says out loud: die. Under current law, heirs inherit those assets at a stepped-up basis, market value at the moment of death. Every dollar of gain that was never taxed simply disappears from the ledger, permanently. The U.S. government itself estimates this single rule costs an estimated $41 billion a year in tax revenue that never gets collected. The catch, and it's the honest one, this requires a serious pile of appreciated assets before any bank writes that line of credit. And there's a dark twin of this same leverage hiding underneath it. If the market drops and the collateral loses value, the lender can issue a margin call, demanding more cash or more stock immediately, or selling the assets out from under the owner to cover the loan. The same multiplier that builds the fortune can liquidate it in a single bad week. This is not a level 1 move. It needed to be seen, because the smaller versions of this exact idea only make sense once the big one is visible. So 3 levels: a product, a down payment, a portfolio. Now here's the part almost nobody expects. 2 of these levels can be run starting tomorrow with nothing close to billionaire money. Real balance transfer cards are currently offering 0% interest for 18 to 21 months, some stretching to 24, for a one-time fee of roughly 3 to 5%. That's renting money at about 3% total for nearly 2 years. If a different card is charging 24% on a balance sitting there right now, moving it isn't a clever trick. It's close to a guaranteed double-digit return that almost no investment on earth will promise in writing. And underneath every one of these levels sits a lever that costs nothing and multiplies all of them at once: the price of money itself. The national average credit score sits at 715 right now. The gap between an average score and an excellent one isn't cosmetic. It's several percentage points on every mortgage, every auto loan, every business line of credit for the rest of a lifetime. Run that gap through 30 years of borrowing and it compounds into tens of thousands of dollars. Here's the part that actually builds trust, because it's the part most content skips. These aren't 4 versions of luck. They're the same formula, gated by what's already been built. Runnable today, no capital required, the credit score lever, and the balance transfer arbitrage. Both are available the moment this video ends. Runnable soon with savings or a sellable product, trade credit for anyone selling anything. The refinance strategy once there's a down payment and the patience to find a property that actually cash flows. Not runnable yet, and that's fine. The buy, borrow, die structure. It requires a portfolio large enough for a bank to extend a securities-backed line against, and the risk tolerance to survive a margin call. Skipping straight to this level without the first 3 is how people get hurt chasing a strategy built for a different net worth. The levels exist in that order on purpose. Each one is the training ground for the next. So here's everything this comes down to. A loan is rented money. The spread is what that money earns minus what it costs. Leverage decides how many times that spread gets multiplied. And the only real difference between the person checking their balance at 2 a.m. and the person who just bought a house with money that wasn't fully theirs is which side of that one inequality they were standing on. But there's a question this video deliberately left open. The margin call that can liquidate a billionaire's portfolio in a single bad week, that exact same mechanism is sitting quietly underneath every regular brokerage account too, the moment anyone borrows against it. Almost nobody explains how that gets triggered or how to see it coming before it happens. That's the part with the teeth in it. That's next.